Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a Karen claims that I am trespassing on her property when I visit a public beach with my family. She calls her son, who is a police officer, to kick me out. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. The first one starts like this. When you get older, you start to take a fancy for the finer things in life. The things that require little input to enjoy the output, and for me, it was chilling at a nice quiet beach and just lounging around to listen to the soothing sounds of the waves crashing against the ocean. I have been a cop since I was 18, applied when I was 17, and by the time I completed the training I was 18. It is all I have known throughout my life, moving up to sergeant before taking the detective's exam and now happily working as a detective inspector. Being close to retirement, I don't so much do all the running around chasing after bad guys anymore. I deal with less physically demanding crimes. The sort of thing that requires more brain power than muscle power, so anyway, to unwind I would go down to the beach to simply lounge around and enjoy the sound of the crashing waves. This was a quiet public beach that backed up onto some houses, the sort that you could walk right out of the garden and be on the beach. I was always jealous of the people that lived in those houses, of being able to wake up in the morning and come straight out into the beach. I had to travel 20 minutes in my car to get to the beach and pay for parking. I did look at buying a house next to the beach, but they are pretty expensive. After several years of coming to the same beach at least once a week, you get to know the locals and the regulars. Most of which were really nice and retirees themselves, who all acted like I was joining some sort of special club when I told them I would be retiring in a few years. But there was this one person who lived in one of the beach houses. For the purpose of protecting this person's identity, she will be referred to as Karen. Karen is the type of person who loves to make life difficult for everyone else. You would have probably guessed by the pseudonym. I would often see Karen come out and shoo people away from the area her back garden came out onto the beach. I wanted to do something about this because I had the feeling that she was being a rather nasty Karen and moving people without warrant. Each time I spoke to Karen's victims, they would pass it off and say that they didn't want to cause any trouble and that it was easier just to move on. That's the problem with the British. They would rather move on and ignore the problem than deal with it. It's the polite thing to do. And by the way guys, if you haven't noticed until here, the story takes place in the UK. Anyway, so I decide that it's time to set up a sting operation. I was gonna bait Karen into being a menace to me and then nab her red-handed. And sure, in the police force such an operation is known as entrapment, but this was not an official sting operation, and when I'm out there without a uniform, I'm a civilian just like anyone else. So one day I set myself up on the beach right by her garden gate. The day goes by and nothing happens. She must have been out or I wasn't drawing enough attention, so on the next time I'm down at the beach I make more of an effort to get Karen's notice. I see some curtains twitch, but nothing much else. Time to pull out the big guns. I come down to the beach on a particularly sunny day. I have my radio with me and even brought the grandkids down. This was exactly what was needed to draw Karen's attention, but she was still not coming out. Not until I took my top off and had my barrel belly out on full display. While the kids were splashing around in the sea, I caught sight of her storming down her garden path. Her fierce eyes never once left me. I could have sworn she was trying to shoot lasers out of her eyes or something. She came right up to me and in a voice like thunder demanded that I vacated her section of the beach. I point out that this section of the beach, and in fact the whole beach, was a public beach and that I could be wherever I so desired as per my right. It's actually really easy to tell who is a cop and who isn't simply by the way they talk and act in conflict, but she didn't cotton on, which I found strange when she told me that her son was a police officer and if I did not get off her property now, she was gonna call him up and have me arrested. And well, trespass is a funny law. For example, did you know that you can wander into anywhere you choose, even other people's houses as you wish? You are only trespassing in the UK if you are issued a denial for access. Most of the time, this is issued by a notice saying something along the lines of private property, no right of way, and words to that effect. You can walk into someone's house and you have a right to be there so long as the property owner does not say anything. And by the way guys, it seems like this is very different to the US. Anyway, when it comes to public property, the only way I can be arrested for trespassing is if I'm intentionally blocking others from conducting actions of a lawful nature, and seeing as trying to get someone to leave a specific area of a public beach is not lawful in any way, I knew her son could not do a single thing. I tell her as much and she is not happy. She goes bright red in the face and I still don't think she has cottoned onto the fact that I am a police officer. Surely if her son is a police officer she would have been able to figure this out, but maybe she thought I was a smart ass. I have run into plenty of those before, thinking they know the law. So anyway, she goes back to her house, no doubt to call in reinforcements, and about an hour later, Karen is storming down the garden path, with her burly looking son, probably a boxer, and they come right up to me. Karen immediately goes off on one, and I just stand there looking at her, desperately trying not to laugh at her and her son. Once she has finished, her son starts explaining how I am breaking the law and I need to move on and leave their beach immediately, effectively trying to kick me out. Bless him, I could tell he was actually a police officer, albeit not been on the force for long. I say one thing to her son, MIPO. He looks at me confused for a second before his mouth clamps shut. MIPO is misconduct in public office. It's the one thing all police officers dread and probably the most common report an officer will face. The amount of times a civilian files an MIPO report when they feel a police officer has arrested them unfairly is staggering, and I remember the first time I faced my first MIPO. I pooped myself because if I was found guilty, it can carry time in prison. With her son dealt with, and he was quick to pick up on the fact that I was a fellow police officer, I round on Karen. It was time to close the jaws on this trap, and so I lay into Karen with all guns blazing. I tell her that I have witnessed her harass the public that have picked this area of the beach to lounge on, and with it being a public beach, she is falsely using the law to scare people away. I point out that her son, being a police officer, should know better and how much trouble she should be in. But luckily for her, no one has wanted to file a statement against her, but now that I've witnessed her actions for myself, I would be keeping a very close eye on her. She went back to her house with her tail between her legs, but I was not done there. She needed to know that I was serious. So I came back a few days later and she got issued a fine of £1,000 under the Coastal Protection Act of 1949. This Protection Act is a simple law, one that no one ever thinks about or even knows. It's basically illegal in the UK to take pebbles from the beach, and it carries a minimum £1,000 fine. And well, Karen's garden is full of pebbles artfully displayed in her rock garden. Sure, such an act on my part could warrant Karen to file an MIPO against me, and she would be right to do so, but I don't think she will. And here, Ripe Stars, that is a perfect example of using the law against Karen. Props to OP for standing up against her, even on his time of work. Anyway, the next one is a petty revenge story. So my apartment complex and everyone else has an assigned cabinet. You could provide your own lock, but I only stored detergent there. I noticed it getting lower and lower between my uses. I had one seriously sketchy couple down the hallway and placed my bets. I put in blue RIT clothing dye, and 3 days later, it's the sketchy couple down the hall pounding on my door because I ruined 3 batches of laundry. When I asked them how I ruined their laundry, they admitted to stealing my detergent from my cupboard. I asked them to hold on a minute, close the door, and go and get my detergent from the pantry closet. Come back and show them this is my detergent and that I don't use the communal cupboard because humans have zero respect for others' property and they steal stuff. That some prankster must be having a go by putting some spiked detergent in one of the cupboards. I also thanked them for letting me know that anyone that would be so petty as to steal detergent would be trustworthy on any other front. They got evicted a few months later anyways. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you enjoy the petty revenge and other revenge stories, then please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much, and the next one is another petty revenge story. This was months ago, but I love thinking about it. At the time I was doing the RV life thing and my parents bought a house with an acre flower field next to it. The plan was for me to live on the acre for the winters. When I visited, I parked it in the very back of the property, far away from anyone, and literally had someone coming in that week to put in fencing. Cue Karen, the neighbor across from us. She complained that it was an eyesore and called the city to complain, and unfortunately, I was not allowed to be living in an RV legally on that empty plot. For some reason, however, I could if it was parked on developed land, some weird bureaucratic city nonsense where the field was not allowed to be developed, and the only legal/practical place was directly in front of her yard in our driveway. So Karen got to enjoy my big ugly RV for 6 months every time she came home or left. The next one is an Am I the A-hole story. I, 28 male, have been married to my wife Bella, 28 female, for 5 years. We both met and went to the same college, she pre-law while I was doing animation. She graduated top of our class and went to a T20 law school. While she was in law school, I had a lot of trouble finding a job in my field or a job at all, really. I ended up working in a kitchen as a line cook to help support us, in addition to loans that she took out while she was going to school so she could just focus on her classes. Bella got a very good job in a different state after she graduated, so I quit my job and have not gotten another one since. We have no kids, but a nice house for the two of us and are overall living very comfortably. She works very long hours, so I take care of the most household things. Cleaning, cooking, grocery shopping, repainting the walls and doing other work and renovations to the house. In the last 6 months, Bella has started referring to me as her house husband around our family and friends. I've mostly been letting it go, but every single time it bothers me. I am already insecure about not being able to find a good job, and it makes me feel even more inadequate. I finally got to the end of my rope when we were with her mother on Sunday, who still does not really approve of me, and they were talking about taking care of the lawn and garden, and she said, "Thank goodness I have a house husband for that, or I would never find the time," and then smiled at me. Then they both laughed and it was humiliating. I didn't say anything at first, but I guess she could tell that I was really upset and asked what was wrong. I told her that she needed to stop emasculating me and making it seem like I didn't contribute anything to the household. We were arguing back and forth and she told me that she would stop calling me a house husband if I was gonna get that upset about it, but that it was not an untrue term and I needed to stop being insecure. Bella refuses to apologize. I feel like she doesn't fully appreciate my value as her husband. I have stopped doing the chores until she apologizes and she is beyond pissed off. She has been coming home and cooking dinner only for herself and doing the chores I haven't and then taking off to spend the night at a friend's house. I was talking to my sister about it and she told me that Bella was wrong but I was being immature in my response. The thing is, if I give in, she's going to keep thinking what she has been doing is okay. I don't even know anymore. Am I the a-hole? And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think OP is being the a-hole here, or is his wife the a-hole? Either way, a comment said, "Darling, you are a house husband. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, or being a housewife for that matter. Why do you believe that it is a put down or emasculating? It is an equal contribution to your family and household, it holds value, it permits your wife to work longer hours at her job without trying to also maintain the household. If you are truly unhappy in that role, do something about it, look for work in your chosen field or look into going back for new qualifications. You are the a-hole for getting upset about a factually correct statement. Comment number 2, you are the a-hole, being a housewife is not demeaning and it's a thankless important job for a household. Women understand that and that's why the term house husband is not offensive to them. It is a tough job women have done thanklessly for men for generations. To have a man reverse those roles shows that he understands its value and that's why the women in your life are laughing and talking about it. A man willing to be a house husband is usually considered a catch in a world full of men who won't even do the laundry without whining. I think you need to re-evaluate why you think being a house husband is emasculating or devalues your work. You must think that it makes you lesser, but why? Why is being a housewife so shameful? Do you think less of the women who do that job? So many women have given up everything, their careers, financial freedom, and lives to fulfill this role. And why is it okay for them to make that sacrifice but shameful for you? You are a house husband, get over it and think about what that means instead of what other men have told you to believe. Comment number 3, it sounds like you have a plan. She will work and come home and cook for herself and do the chores important to her. And you will sit at home and do nothing except make meals for yourself? Good plan. She will eventually wonder why she is pulling all the weight and that will teach her. She should find someone else that helps out around the house. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. My neighbor who took me to court because of noise my cat made. This happened about 4 years ago now and still is one of the more ridiculous things to happen to me. I was living in San Diego, CA at the time in a small apartment building with 7 or 8 units. I lived on the second floor. Our building was right near the highway overpass on the outskirts of downtown. We were also very close to the airport flight path, which made our neighborhood pretty loud. At this point, I had already lived in my apartment for just over 3 years. I decided to get a cat, got the permission from my landlord, and paid a pet deposit. When I got her through a shelter, she was probably about 3 months old. One night I was watching TV when there was a knock at my door. I answered, and standing on my porch were 2 police officers, both with their hands on their weapons, both seemingly tense. They told me they had a noise complaint from my downstairs neighbor and that he thought I was on drugs and rolling a bowling ball around. It took me a few seconds to understand what they were talking about, and then I laughed. Oh, that's probably just my kitten running around. They were not amused. They told me if they had to come back, they would have to do something, which is a pretty wild threat after finding out the noise was from a cat. I left a message with my landlord to let them know what had happened. The next day, my downstairs neighbor came to my door to apologize to me. He said he thought I may have been making or selling drugs because his army intelligence friends told him that those noises he heard align with drug activity. That made zero sense to me, but I came to realize this guy was not all there. He said he was sorry and was happy I had a cat and that he even had a toy he would give me. Cool, problem solved, right? About 2 weeks later, I had police at my door again. This time they were aware of the situation and we all chuckled about how absurd the situation was. However, since they were called, they had to come. They just told me I'm doing nothing wrong, don't worry about a thing. Right around this time, my neighbor began hitting his ceiling anytime my cat ran around. It got me anxious to the point of having my cat sleep in a separate smaller room so she could not run around. This only lasted a couple nights since she would cry the whole time. I just thought, whatever, I'm doing nothing illegal, we live in a city in a loud area, it's an apartment, etc. I am not sure of the exact timeline, but about a week later I had police at my door again. This time it was the San Diego County Sheriff with a damn court summons. This old douchebag neighbor was trying to get a restraining order against me and was claiming elder abuse. Yes, because of the noise of a now 6-month-old cat. Court date comes around and I had printed up about 15 to 20 pictures of my cat to show the judge. I was furious. My neighbor's evidence was handed to me, which was basically a list of dates and times that he marked down when he heard noises from my apartment. It is legit insane and 5 pages long, and I still have it. The judge did not want to hear any of it, just forced us to enter into court-appointed mediation. I am fine with that, I just want things to improve. I received a call a few weeks after our court date to let me know that the neighbor refused mediation and that we would have a second court date towards the end of the month. Throughout all this time, he was banging on the ceiling and scaring my cat. He started being malicious and would just whack the ceiling in the middle of the night, oftentimes waking me and causing my cat to go crazy and run around. Finally, the second court date was here, and at this point I had already decided I would be leaving San Diego. It had nothing to do with this ongoing situation, but it was a light at the end of the tunnel for sure. We are in court and the judge starts yelling at my neighbor for refusing mediation and wasting the state's money. I interrupted to say, I just want to make sure everyone knows this is about noise my 6-month-old cat is making. I hear laughter from other people behind me in the courtroom. The neighbor pleads his case, says I am harassing him and making too much noise. I repeat, this is about noise my 6-month-old cat is making. The judge is clearly annoyed that this old man is wasting the court's time and said that we must enter mediation. I tell him, I'm sorry, we shouldn't even be here. I'm moving out of state in just a few weeks and again, this is about the noise a cat is making. Again, more chuckles from the courtroom. To this, the judge replies, oh well, if you don't end up moving, then you will need to come back to court. I said okay and was ready to be done with all this BS. My neighbor tried to have pleasantries with me at that point, but I just ignored him and walked out. I wish there was some sweet revenge at the end, but really, I never spoke to him again and my cat and I are living happily in an apartment where she can run around to her heart's desire and no one can tell her otherwise. Edit, my landlord did nothing to help me out, just chuckled and said, oh yeah, he's a character. And by the way, Ripe Stars, JB and me are thinking about getting a cat in the future because I gotta be honest guys, I really miss having a cat. And we are currently thinking about which type of cat we should get. If it would be just me deciding, I would probably go to a, I don't know what you call it, cat orphanage or something, and get one of these cute black Thai cats often referred to as temple cats here. However, I do understand in Thai culture often these cats are associated with bad luck, so JB maybe wants a different one. She really likes the American short-hair ones, and personally, if you really buy an expensive cat, I would probably get something like a Bengal cat because they look really amazing. What are your favorite cats? Do you have any good recommendations? Let us know in the comments. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.